a nice cold rally down the corner of Lindell and Grand. And he was born in Kansas City, so he is a Midwesterner. And there's information about his education. And then all the places he's been and all the places he's worked for. And it's amazing to put the group with the country. He was...
But I quit college at the University of Chicago with a master's degree because I wanted to get out into the real world as soon as possible. I'll mention a couple of other things. I'm a veteran of World War II, was a conscientious objector, served in England and on the continent. I was a medic. And as I mentioned, the school I went to, I'm always sort of proud of it, the University of Chicago, which I only got into, given my low working class status, through the GI Bill of Rights, which maybe some of you here who have benefited from that wonderful program that the U.S. government put in place. Well, Mrs. Best has pretty well mentioned the important thing. You may recognize that those years, the mid-70s, were among, well, I guess they were the last halfway livable conditions in that country of Afghanistan. Ever since then, there have been coups and wars and warlords, Russian invasion, then an American invasion. And although very little of this was traditional war a la Europe in World War II, it's war and violence of a continuing sort. I put this map up here. That's pretty far away for most people to see, I suppose, and I may even be in the way.
The mic will come off.
Pardon?
The mic will come off.
Oh, that's all right.
I'll leave that for the moment. Except they might bump it every once in a while. I want to introduce my fellow conspirator for this particular talk. This young lady who looks like she's dressed in an Afghan costume. If you turn around, does that look like anything you may have seen? It happens to be the costume the President Karzai prefers. And you may not want to take it off. But anyhow, and it's interesting, he comes from a totally different part of the country from where people wear this. This is obviously not a peasant's costume. It's sort of elite people, leaders, in the very northern part of Afghanistan, which is really an Uzbekistan costume, and Uzbekistan, of course, borders Afghanistan here. I might mention the ethnic groups while I'm at it. You're probably familiar again with some of these things like the Pashtuns, the Tajiks. This is going to help.
That's okay.
You don't need that, do you?
There you go.
That's a rock star.
There you go.
Anyhow, the Pashtuns are the largest group. They actually live through staff person on the Peace Corps staff. There are about 160 Peace Corps volunteers all over Afghanistan. And Peace Corps had been there since the early 60s, one of the very first countries after Kennedy introduced this program that the Peace Corps got in there. When I was there, the program was sort of going downhill. The government was not replacing. Typically, the volunteer goes for 2 years, and at the time, one group is coming out, another group is coming in, and it's just cycling over and over. But during the period I was there, it was the first time that the numbers of volunteers were declining regularly. the government was not asking replacements as volunteers left. There were very few of them being replaced. In fact, with other people on the staff there, we were very puzzled about that. It turned out very important things were happening behind the scenes that I'll talk about later, but a large number of the Afghan military and the high-level technicians had been trained in the Soviet Union through the 50s and 60s. And these people came back into Afghanistan, and 2 communist parties were set up there. They were fighting one another as much as they were fighting capitalism. Although Afghanistan could hardly, I guess, ever be considered a capitalist country. Intact statues of the Buddha up to 200 feet high. There are 2 major ones. Another one, I believe, was buried someplace in the end. Once they were looking for it, I don't think they are quite now. But among the things we passed through was and this is has a double point to it. You've probably heard of the Khyber Pass. It's not the Khyber Pass, it's the Khyber Pass. And this is a general proposition, and you can act like the smartest person in your neighborhood by recognizing that the KH diphthong, which is the beginning of so many Afghan and Arab names, in other words, the way we transmit into rough English words that in Arab or Hebrew, for that matter, are simply not pronounceable by people who only speak English. So the sound that KH is supposed to make, as in the Khyber Pass, is Khyber Pass. It's the H that sounded. The K is just indicate it's got a little guttural to it. The typical person you might see wandering around would have a gun over his shoulder. And there are a lot of these give and take family feuds. And in fact, the so-called code of the Pashtuns has this big hospitality element, but it also has the element of revenge. Any slight to a family must be revenged in some way. And very often this means killing. If you dishonor somebody in your tribe is dishonored, a woman is raped, for example, therefore ruined. You, depending on the tribal intensity, have a right to kill somebody. It could be anybody, it doesn't have to be the rapist. Just somebody from that tribe. But of course then they have to practice their revenge. And so there's sort of the Hatfields and the McCoys, is the American tradition and stuff. And it's certainly said, and it's kind of a legend, that if you do take in a stranger from another tribe, an enemy actually, but still you have to take him in. If he's lost at night, you feed him, you give him the best bed in the house, good breakfast, and you say goodbye as he goes out the gates of your compound, and you give him maybe 200 or 300 yards, and then you can go after him and shoot him. But the hospitality had to be